Okay, great. So, for everyone watching this, good evening. Really want to welcome Jason on the podcast. So, thanks a lot for Jason like doing this and getting some great valuable time from your schedule and helping us with this. So yeah, like Jason, maybe you can just give a brief introduction in terms of what you do, and then we can get started.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation with you today. My name is Jason Olson. I own a Mr. Handyman franchise here in the South Metro of Minneapolis, St. Paul. We provide handyman home maintenance and repair services, as well as commercial maintenance and repair services for local and small businesses. Anything from footings to trim for homes and similar for property managers or local commercial businesses, from a veterinarian clinic to a dentist office. We can help with all sorts of maintenance and repair needs.
That's great. Thanks for joining in once again. So we'll just dive in. So I'll start with the first question, right? Like before you started with handyman services, like how was the complete sort of journey of starting something in this particular niche? And how did you get started with that?
Yeah, no, good question. So for the last 12 years or so, I was selling enterprise software, working in corporate America, carrying a quota every year, every quarter. Did well. I mean, selling software was a great way to make a lot of money. Um, but it really, with the way the market is growing and changing, and it feels like consolidating. Everybody's talking, AI and analytics and Chat GPT, and a lot of the services that we were offering became really competitive to the likes of Amazon, Google, Microsoft. And I just felt like at some point I really wanted to find more, meaning, accomplishment, and joy in what I was doing every single day. And I realized that for me, a B2C um, type of role fit really well. And it gave me an opportunity to really look at, how I interact with people, um, not from a trying to sell B2B, mega $1 million deals, to, hey, how can I just come in and do a great job, at your house today, and maybe come back tomorrow? How can I help deliver that same type of feeling, that experience, when I leave, that, oh man, just a weight off the shoulders. That project has been on my back for months. I'm so glad to have it done. Thanks for coming out. So for me, when I was looking at franchises, I looked at all sorts of, from swim schools, to small data marketing companies, to junk removal. And I landed on Handyman because that gave us an opportunity to do all sorts of different work across, all sorts of types of interior, exterior work. And, um, there's a lot of businesses right now that, HVAC, plumbing, electric, a lot of that market is kind of consolidating as well, but also the customer experience. Um, the handyman, like, there's a certain um, there's a certain feel, like when you're talking to a handyman, it's like, hey, I need somebody that can do this. So you'll ask your friend or you ask your neighbor, who do you know that can do this and that? And they'll say, oh, it's maybe my cousin's friend. He lives the next city over, and maybe you'll get a hold of them and you're not sure when they'll show up and if they'll show up. And for me, I wanted to bring that customer experience that I have in software to modernize and professionalize the handyman trade. So things like always having a person answer the phone, always having somebody that said, yeah, we're going to be here and we're going to show up when we say we're going to show up. We're going to show up in a branded van. We're going to show up with, polos on, and be professional in our work. And so that was something that I was really interested in doing and bringing to the trade.
That's amazing. That's great. Okay, so that's basically like you basically tried looking at a lot of different let's say sectors and then sort of narrowing down on something that is something that's of need at the same time when like there's a lot of demand, but then basically the supply was limited or there were not that many people that were doing that well, right? So that's how basically you went through that sort of a complete research and then figuring out or finalizing a particular thing, right? So like that's something that everyone should learn, right? Like um, obviously people like people talk about that they should start something of their own and everyone wants to do that, but uh, like all the aspects needs to be understood that whatever you want to do, there should be a demand for that. Like people should be looking out for those sort of services. There should be something unique that you're trying to offer. Obviously, unique doesn't mean that it has to be a completely, let's say, thing that no one has heard about. But then there can be even small changes like you are great at customer service, right? Because
Mhm.
especially with services, I guess that's the biggest thing that how you talk to your customers, how you treat them, how you get things done for them. Because getting things done is still one aspect of the work, but then obviously treating them in a certain way is another. So that's kudos, like kudos to you for doing that. Uh, so the next thing that I obviously want to know a lot about is like when it comes to logo services, there are lots of challenges. So let's say what are the biggest sort of the challenges that you have encountered, maybe the top two, and ways that you, let's say, went through those challenges and uh, like solved them.
Yeah, no, great question. Bringing a brand, to market, the biggest thing that we face here in the first, couple of years of business is really, um, first and foremost, client acquisition, really that brand awareness in the market that we serve. And then the other one is delivering that exceptional customer experience, which starts with the company culture and the quality of service that we deliver. Um, in the industry, there's a lot of um, the workforce is you can find some real exceptional workers that really buy into the culture, the exceptional service delivery, the done right promise that we do offer with our services, and just making sure that you match people that really want to embody the values that we bring to the market. And the the first thing that I kind of encountered was, all right, I got the business, I purchased it, right? We're ready to go. We've got the website built, we got the support of Neighborly. The brand is a national brand, so there's some market awareness, but not locally. And so, all right, well, what do I do first? Do I hire my CSR, my customer service rep that answers the phone? And of course, there's a lot that goes into, hey, this is the first person that your customers and your clients are going to hear. Is it a friendly voice? Do they really want to get to know you? Do they respond quickly? What happens when something goes wrong or you need to deliver a message like, hey, we need to reschedule? Those types of things have to be delivered in a certain fashion that your clientele understands and accepts, because we spend a lot of money, like I said, with Google, right? There's a lot of money with the Google engines to just drive business in the door. So the last thing you want to do is spend all this money to get a phone call or to get an email, or we do offer chat bots on our website, and so just to drive that interaction is costly in this first year. So converting that lead into a booked job is that first aspect. And then, like I said, I talked about, like, that was a challenge in and of itself because there was no market awareness. You're hiring your companies that can do SEO, you're looking at pay per click, you're looking at your Google LSA, and you have to have certain requirements met before you can even have a Google business profile with your 5-star
So
reviews enough. um, so getting there, it took a little while, but man, once that starts revving up, then it's time to make sure that you've got the right people to go deliver on the services. So that was the biggest challenge for me, was making sure that I found a quality technician and then that second technician, and then the third, and then making sure that they're showing up on time, they're doing quality work, that people find value in the work that they're paying for. And so a lot of that comes with how you explain the services and then deliver it, and then how you follow up, right? Because that experience really matters. And are you getting the number of reviews that you'd like? And I don't know that I'm getting the number of reviews I'd like right now, and I don't know that I'm asking enough. So there's a little learning curve that we're going through there as well. So hopefully that answers your question. I would say two things is one, just getting that client acquisition phase, and then delivering on that customer experience promise that we say we're going to.
That's so true, right? Like for any business out there, like I guess the biggest sort of a question that anyone when starts something after they've, let's say, figured out that okay, they want to do something. I guess the biggest thing is where are they going to get those clients? Because like getting clients, and we know the type of competitive market that we are in. I can understand that it can be sectors where let's say there's less competition, while there can be others where there's more, but the competition is just increasing on a daily basis, right? So um, getting those sort of people, I guess, is like specifically initially, like when you're starting something, that's the biggest sort of a challenge as well. Like even uh, I I started a marketing agency. Before that, I was working in a company where I learned that skill, where I learned how to do that. But when I was looking to start, the biggest sort of a challenge or the biggest question that I had was, will I be able to get enough clients to service? Will I be able to, let's say, do my job and get the clients as well, right? Because when it comes to marketing, like I don't even know the number of companies that offer marketing solutions, right? So that's the biggest question that anyone has. So once you're able to figure that out, and then I guess the biggest thing after you have maybe sort of started figuring that out is able to do good job, or let's say provide those services in the right way, and then keeping those customers, because we all know that even with any engine out there or even with any process out there, getting new clients is tough, and therefore maintaining them is really important uh, in this time. So I totally understand both the elements, and they really are crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the next one is because a lot of people really want to understand that how to get those clients, and therefore the next question is important, which is what are the different channels? Like when I say channels, I'm not just talking about, let's say, Google or Meta or anything. I'm just saying that what are the different ways of you acquiring your customers? So
Yeah,
that's the next
yeah, absolutely. And I think every owner operates a little bit differently in terms of like what their strengths are and what their passions are. For me, the way I started this business is it's a people-based business, and it's about relationships and networking. So the first thing that I did was look at those available options to me in that particular channel. So BNI, and first and foremost, is one of the first things I did, and it's been proven to be extremely helpful. Just building relationships with high quality individuals that are out to achieve the same things that we're trying to achieve, and supporting each other with growing their business. That's been a very foundational step for me in terms of obtaining new clients. And a warm referral is always the best, in terms of conversion in booking jobs. Um, Joining the local chamber of commerce. Those were things that I felt were very important, to making sure that we are members, because that is a source for homeowners, and businesses to go is, hey, let's go check out our local chamber and who offers a service. So that was, if you kind of bucket that all into, your networking bucket, right, and personal relationships and building that type of awareness, that was foundational. And then layering in the digital channels, I think was second. Your standards, right? Where are you in terms of Google? Where are you in terms of Facebook? Then your social profiles, and then Angie's leads has been very helpful and instrumental in giving us an opportunity to connect with people that are requesting the service. So they may not be looking at us particularly directly, but they became aware of who we are, And so Angie's has been a great lead source for us in terms of acquiring new clients. Um, for me, the biggest challenge has been social. Um, I'm a little bit technically deficient in that area. I do have 3 kids that could, you know, run laps around me and are like, Dad, how come you're not doing this? It's so easy. And I'm like, is it? But I'd say for me, really learning how to get that exposure on the social side um, has been an area of focus for me, especially as we look at the seasons changing here in Minnesota, where we're going to have some cooler weather, snow is going to come, and a lot of work is going to start to move interior. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity for me to take this time to grow and develop that presence. As we know, it can just drive a tremendous amount of value. And so socially, I'm looking at these opportunities with you to sit down and have a podcast and talk about, Mr. Handyman, talk about, what goes into starting a business. And hopefully, that will turn into the opportunity with some people to get to know who I am, get to know the business on a more personal side. So, yeah, I think those channels have been really important for me in getting the business up and going. There's still a lot more to do, but right now, those are the key 3 areas that I'm focusing on.
That's great, right? Like you talked about DNI, you talked about some, let's say, communities where people really look for, and then obviously you talked about, um, let's say, the search, the Google, all of that. So obviously you're doing Google Ads as well, right? Like because with services, I've seen like Google Ads is a great sort of a channel, and you get a ton of leads from that. So I'm just guessing that Google Ads is also one of those channels, right?
Yeah, yeah. The LSA is local service ads. I think we've been up with those 2 months.
Okay.
It just took a while for us to be able to get there in order to turn that on, but that's been really helpful in terms of driving calls and a lot of chat emails actually come through. Where and I think this is the interesting thing about a handyman service is customers have so many different ways to interact with the business now, whether that's on social or directly with the website, a chat bot or just a chat. Being able to provide that, because that's the expectation. And so when I talked earlier about professionalizing and modernizing this particular trade, has been a goal. And I think those key things, especially with Google LSA, is giving people an opportunity to interact with you in that method that they want to interact with you, right? And so it's not perfect, but it's definitely been super helpful since we've worked with Google for the LSAs, for sure. The Google business profile and all of these were new to me when I started the business. I mean, I knew how to sell, surveys and conversational analytics, but what I didn't really know how to do is, okay, how do you actually operationalize this in a business? So it's been very exciting and fun to learn. I can't wait to see what it looks like next year at this time.
Great. So you're managing all of those aspects by yourself, like even the ads and everything?
No, yeah, that's I wish. Those are things that I have to outsource. And so with
Okay.
Neighborly, Mr. Handyman as a franchise, they don't require you to use certain vendors, but they've already got pre-negotiated, um,
Okay.
kind of rates, agreements, and things that they can help us with in terms of buying power and volume. But we're not, we have the opportunity to move to other organizations that may provide a higher quality service at a
True.
more valuable cost. So right now, if I had to go try to figure that out on my own, I don't know that I would have actually purchased the franchise. I think franchise is the way to go for somebody that wants to get out of corporate and wants to start something, but having to do it all from scratch, every single one of these channels, it it would have been substantially more challenging to get to this place today.
I can understand. I can understand with the again, right? Like the thing with businesses, there are not like one or two components that you're looking at. You're the one that is hiring. You're the one that is talking to the customers. You're the one that is bringing in customers. So there's no one part, and therefore having right people on every sort of a thing is, let's say, one of the most crucial elements. Is what I think. Like the job of a founder at times is to bring in right people on the right things, and then making sure that everything is aligned, I guess. So that's the biggest challenge, the biggest sort of thing to figure out. So yeah,
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about different owners' strengths. Some owners may bring in that strength, whether it's financial acumen or social presence and marketing. For me, it's like, hey, my strengths was getting out in front of people. Where I looked for help and resources to keep the business moving forward and growing was to find those companies that were more specialized in SEO, pay-per-click, LSAs. Yeah, that's something that I would have struggled with, and
True.
I'm still struggling to learn, how to do everything. It's not that it's just so much. It's like drinking through a fire hose really soon, and so I know I'll improve, and that'll start to come up. But right now, it's like, yeah, I'm relying on the expertise of others to help me.
So that's true, right? Like at the end of the day, it just matters that you are getting like there are the right channels that are there in place, and obviously, if someone can look at that, that's great to have. So yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, great.
So the next thing, again, right, like when it comes to handyman services, so let's say most of the local businesses, advertising them is also not, let's say, normal, right? Like it's not like selling a t-shirt that you're like, okay, go and buy this. This is something that people will only need when they need it. Like unless there is anything wrong, they don't need the service. Like, and then just showing the ads. Like the biggest thing that we as marketers, our job is to reach out to the right customers. Obviously on Google we can still do that because on Google, let's say someone can search for it and therefore there is an intent that can be matched. But on social, it's difficult, right? Like you can't really target anyone that is, let's say, is facing that issue. And therefore, like, what are the creative ideas do you think of when it comes to advertising in general, right? Because Google is, let's say, just one part of it. But when it comes to the type of service that it is, and then reaching out to the right customer, how do you do that?
Yeah. I wish, I really wish I knew, it's that's a great question, and so when I look at the market and the potential customers that we're going at, right? What is our addressable market in the space that I own? And as a franchise owner, we purchase zip codes with with households that we look at it a couple ways. One, there's the residences, you've got apartments, you've got rentals, right? Just from a number of homeowners in particular. And so we can actually start to look at the demographics of the market and who we want to target. And there's vendors that can help kind of pull that stuff together and say, okay, well, you've got homeowners that are this age that have this much income, and then we can start to really narrowly focus on those particular homes or apartments. Typically, we don't go after apartments. They have maintenance services, but what we can do then is we'll just identify who we want to start marketing to, whether that's digital or whether that's mailings. Those are the things that we're trying to get out in front of. But as you know, it's difficult, like you said, to find it when they need it. So it's almost like a spray and pray type of, all right, phase one is brand and market awareness, right? Let's just get out there. And then second, like, how do we target those specific needs? And from a handyman services, we can look at it in terms of seasonality. What do most homeowners need in the spring? What do they need in the summer? What do they need in the fall and the winter, and so on and so forth. But connecting with them at the right time. Um, yeah, I mean, I wish there was a magic bullet, for something like that, like the easy button. But it's really relying on our marketing experts to kind of give us direction. You know, and we do things when we are in the field, when we are at somebody's house. So we do have a branded van that's very visual. People can see it. You know, when we're at a job site for a couple of days, we might put a yard sign in or around. And then a lot of time it's door knocking or putting down, you know, door hangers from a tech that's done with the job, just saying, hey, we're in the neighborhood, just saying hi. Um, but then you look at like the other aspect that I said we focus on was residential homes and then commercial local businesses. And that's the other thing that's a little bit more challenging because you got to find a way to get to the right person in that business. And, you know, email addresses aren't, you know, they're not readily available, and, you know, there's so much spam, and, you know, crafting a message that's going to be well received. You know, those are some things that, again,
True.
we look for marketing experts to kind of tell us, hey, what's going to resonate, you know, and what's going to drive a click, you know, and then what's going to drive a conversion. Um, yeah, so that's a big fit. That's a big kind of shift for us at Mr. Handyman, is realizing that, you know, for us, a residential customer might use us once or twice a year, but a local business might use us 6 to 8 times a year, just because you just got more people and more traffic and more flow, and, you know, it's the opportunities tend to be bigger. So that's where we think like, hey, let's make sure that we're trying to find opportunities there. And so that it's funny that we're talking because this is a shift for me. Actually, just recently, as of mid-October, is we're trying to find ways to drive opportunities in those businesses. So one way would be the digital. The other is going to chamber events and meeting those owners. So,
No, that's right, right? Like, but one interesting thing that I took away from you was that if there's any sort of an opportunity where you can maybe do some awareness, you do that. Like, let's say if it's just, let's say, the van, right? Like, because it's not just that house that will see it, but then the complete lane where you're going will be able to see that. And at times people are just able to recall because the name is uh amazing, right? Like it's Mr. Handyman. So it's not difficult for someone to remember it. So that's obviously a plus point. The branding, as I can see it on your hat or your hoodie, it's also like very clear, right? Like it's again something that stands out. So I guess that's obviously one aspect that's been taken care of. And then you mentioned that whenever you are at a particular place for a longer duration, you try to do something or maybe try to form some connections because I guess every sort of a, let's say, view or every click, as we say, matters. So that's how it has to be because if I say that I can give you like anyone say that they can give you complete sort of a roadmap of how you can reach out to your customer just sitting there, there's no particular way for this particular business because until unless someone needs it, I can understand that let's say businesses can still have their designated partners that they work with. So that's obviously one way that can be directly reached out to, but then the P2C aspect can't be, right? Like until
mhm.
unless they face a thing, uh, I guess they won't know. Like maybe I know a few companies. What they do is they try to do small events in particular areas, which is more of an like they try to do some activities so that people can come there. They'll be able to do a job of letting them know that okay, this is what we offer, and just this is a purely awareness sort of an activity, right? Because obviously they get business from that, and that's why they're doing it. But when they're doing it, they're not going to get direct business at that time. There are very less chances that someone will say that, okay, I really have something right now. Can I look at that? So again, right, it's just about being aware that wherever you get a chance, you will, let's say, try to market yourself or try to show people that you exist. And then obviously
Mhm.
the ones that will remember will contact you.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So the last question that I have for you is this is more for all of our listeners that let's say for someone who is young who wants to start a local business, what are the let's say the two pieces or let's the two major advice that you will try to give them if they're looking to start something of their own?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it's funny that you asked because my son is 15 and he wants to start his own business. And he's kind of following on the footsteps here. And so the things that I would say, is make sure that you are passionate about what it is you want to do, because there's going to be days where it's going to be tougher than others. Not every day is super exciting. Sometimes it's just a grind that you got to get up and you got to go do it. And so that's one aspect I think, is just to make sure that you're committed to what it is that you want to deliver, whether it's a service or a product. Um, and then and then how are you going to differentiate yourself in the market? Either you can do it better, faster, cheaper. Um, and in this case, he wants to build a clothing brand. And we know that clothing brands are, it's a very dense, very competitive market. And so what is going to separate you in your brand, right? So thinking about that differentiation of what you're going to bring to the market is the first thing that I would always say is, okay, think about that. And then does your passion reside in getting up and doing that every single day? And then the second thing is, it's get a basic understanding of business, like financials. Hey, it's, how much does it cost to produce X? How much are you selling it for? And how much money are you making? And then can you reinvest that money? And so just the simple mathematics of it, in like how are you gonna sell your services, and what kind of profit do you think that you can make? And then extrapolate that out. So it's the just two aspects, right? Just the passion behind what you're going to deliver, and then just have a little bit of business acumen to know that you have to be able to drive profit in order to sustain the business. And I don't do it at, like, you're not going to be an accountant or a financial advisor level, but just basic understanding. How does a balance sheet work in cash flow? And that's really it. I mean, those are the two things. And so when I talk to my son about it, I'm like, all right, what's your inventory at? How many do you need to sell, to make a profit? And so I think those are the key things, that if you're going to start something up, have both of those that you bring to the table, and I think things will work themselves out.
Great advice. Again, right, like all of these two pointers are actionable, which is the main thing, which is okay, like you want to do something. So at times, a lot of advice we get, it's difficult to act upon it, but these are like clear ones that okay, understand something that you love that you can do day in and day out, because like it's going to be a long journey, right? And therefore you can't just do it because you like it for, let's say, a short duration. This is not sort of an hobby. This is going to be some serious work that you need to do.
Hmm.
So I totally agree to that. And then obviously um understanding your financials is, it's very crucial. And at this time when let's say everyone is looking at profitability, like company, like the fundings and everything is getting more tough, right? Like since you talked about fashion or let's say clothing, that's one space that has seen that a lot more than maybe others, because there was a particular time when everyone was just looking at growth numbers and not at profitability, and now things are changing there a lot. So, but I definitely would like to have a chat with your son, because I have worked with more than like 50 businesses in fashion. Like you help them scale, but I just want to understand why, like, how is he looking at things? What's the plan? If there's anything that I can help
Yeah,
him with,
yeah,
I would love to do that. But yeah, inside that, someone who is 15 years old is already thinking about doing something of its own, which is amazing.
yeah, yeah. And I think, kids, younger generation, I think, have access to so much more um, influencers when you're talking about
Yeah.
social media, in just the proliferation of like Elon Musk and Tesla and the things that he was able to achieve. If you're following like the right people, like it can be, inspirational. And so, like, the last thing I would ever want to do is, put water on somebody's fire, right? I want to help grow that and kind of build that
True.
entrepreneurial spirit. And so, he was only 15, it's like, hey, you're not going to knock everything out of the park. There's going to be some of those challenges. So you just, you got to be resilient.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah,
That's
no,
something that
absolutely.
he
Yeah,
has.
it's good to hear that you've got some of the experience with fashion, because I don't know the first thing about fashion.
No, definitely, right? Like, I guess that's been one sector that has like this is like everyone just says fast fashion, but it really is fast because it changes in terms of how people perceive it. Like something that's fashionable today might not be tomorrow, and I haven't really seen that with other set of businesses, right? So therefore, understanding and let's say, as you just said, like being resilient, being doing your job on a daily basis is very important when it comes to sectors that are really fast, adapting to what's coming up, changing, let's say, your design, changing
Mhm.
things that can still keep you relevant is a lot more important in those sort of sectors as compared to like others, right? Like they say, I'm not saying that other sectors don't have let's say challenges, but they obviously have a lot of their own challenges. But fashion is really something. It's getting a lot more competitive, so that's definitely one area wherein everyone wants to like. At times, it just feels like something cool to do, and therefore a lot of people do enter that. But then at the end of the day, the ones that really stick to it, the ones that are resilient, the ones that are there for the long game and the ones that stick. So
Yep. Yep.
that's the
Absolutely.
great. But before we end this, like what we do is we ask one question from the guest, which is a question that we ask to the next guest. So one question I want to know from you that you would like us to ask the next guest on our podcast. So what that question would be, if you have to ask
Oh,
one question.
oh boy. Yeah, that's a great one. Um, yeah, w- w- I guess what is the one discipline that you've used to help you be successful? Those are that's always interesting to me is like a daily habit or something that you've disciplined yourself to do that's helped you achieve, your success or where you're at today. Um, but it's always interesting what an owner would say, or I'm always curious to say like, all right, well, what's the drive, what's the motivation, but like, what have you really disciplined yourself to do? I think that's a good question.
For sure. That's an amazing one. So we'll definitely have a note of this one and we'll ask the next person who joins the podcast that what their answer would be for that. So thanks a lot for that. And but before like I already said that, but before we end, I just want to know like any last words that you would want to add before we sum up an amazing session that we had.
Yeah, nothing really. No, I really just appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation with you today. Thanks for reaching out. It's always fun to meet new people and, share some insights and hopefully it can help somebody else in the future. And I'm excited to see how it turns out.
For sure. But thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining. Thanks a lot for all the insights. Uh, I definitely think a lot of people will be able to get value out of it, and hopefully they are able to uh, create something of value using that. So thanks a lot, Jason, for
Sure.
doing this. Before we end, it will just take a minute for the session to load. So I'll have to just keep you waiting for